The last couple of years have been a great time to be a Digimon fan, with fantastic releases like Last Evolution Kizuna, the Digimon Adventure anime reboot, the resurgence of the Digimon card game, the Vital Bracelet project, and plenty more. It certainly feels like Digimon is having a moment, and naturally fans don't want to see that moment end anytime soon. So today we are discussing our hopes regarding what comes next from Digimon in 2022 and 2023, how to keep the flame burning and elevate the franchise. And to discuss a topic like this, we need to bring in support, which is why one of my favorite Digimon YouTubers, Karn EX, is joining us on the channel today. Just thinking from what the last 2 years have been for Digimon, what makes sense next, what we think is needed to kind of evolve the franchise, if you want to make the easy pun. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the next big JRPG. It's really hard to overstate the importance of seeing the Digimon IP on like storefronts like the PlayStation Network and see the Cyber Sleuth box and be like, what? No way, that's Digimon. And you know, that doesn't happen without a game to point at and to play. So I think I'm interested in Digimon Survive. Can't wait to play it, but I don't know if that's going to be the Digimon game that takes the world by storm, but a big JRPG could. So
yeah, I think it's important. So I got an interesting reply on Twitter the other day from someone that I guess isn't a huge Digimon fan, but they were saying that they felt like the Digimon IP has lapsed, is kind of gone stagnant, which is completely not true, because Digimon has like the card game, the VB, things like that. But I think because people view Digimon as an anime in a video game, when they're not seeing a video game being advertised, they just assume Digimon like isn't doing anything. So I think you're right that I think we do need Survive or whatever comes next to be out there and be physical, and also have an element of marketing. I think is important too, that people realize Digimon is still going. Survive was always supposed to be this stopgap game, and I think it will continue to be that. There is an element, I think, where tactical RPGs are having a renaissance, so I think there is a good chance that Digimon Survive will be successful, at least with Digimon fans, if not wider tactical RPG fans. But I think Digimon needs to make people aware that the next story game is a real thing, and not just in a couple of interviews, I think, to keep that ball rolling, especially for non-Digimon fans who are fans of the Cyber Sleuth games.
I also wanted to talk about, in terms of growing the franchise and what possibly comes next, there is kind of the English dub of Digimon Adventure 2020 to talk about, the possibility of an English dub, I should say. And the thing is, you and I have already seen the show. It's not particularly important to me that I get to watch the show in English, but there's a million other people who could be interested, but for various reasons can't do subtitles, whether it's young kids' reading capacity or just preference to the nostalgia factor of the English dub. So yeah, just when it comes to bringing the franchise to more people and elevating things, I think that the English dub could be huge.
I think there is, yeah, like you say, there's a lot of people who would want the dub and won't watch it until it is dubbed. The likelihood is something like a Crunchyroll or something like that getting it. I do see a potential, and not in the same way that they might push a new show, but with, I know in America, all the dub seasons, or at least the first 4 or 5, are on Hulu, and I wonder if that might be an avenue. And I think even Digimon Adventure 2020 might have ended up on
I heard the first 50 episodes were subbed on Hulu. I don't know what happened, but
I wonder if maybe that was the point where a decision to dub happened and they were like, we're going to dub this thing at some point.
Possibly.
And that might end up on Hulu or Disney Plus or something. Again, not as like a Disney Plus show, but just as something that happens to be on that platform. I think it's very likely at this point, given the things that we've seen. And I have to dance around this quite heavily, but I had a couple of people I knew that might have attended auditions that were using scripts with names that weren't Digimon, but a lot of the dynamics at play felt very familiar. There might have been audition processes last year for something that felt very Digimon-y, like older brother, younger brother, set of 8 kids kind of vibe. So I think there is a decent chance we'll see it.
Again, I don't think the Digimon Adventure 2020 dub is something that like the hardcore fans, people watching our videos, are necessarily craving, but there are so many people I know that just aren't aware that Digimon is still making stuff. And if you are logging into Hulu or Disney Plus or even Crunchyroll and you see like the new Digimon Adventure English dub, or you see a trailer on YouTube, it might possibly blow your mind and get you to check out the new show. So could be a big way to move things forward for Digimon. The next point I wanted to talk about was my sort of desire for a more mature Digimon story, that was really the most excited I was to be a Digimon fan, and what got me back into the franchise was the combination of Tri being about the older Digidestin plus the Cyber Sleuth games following slightly older kids. So I'm looking for a story closer to a Persona 5, I guess, in terms of cast and mature story themes, and I wonder what you think.
So I agree, and I think in many ways that's what I kind of almost hoped Ghost Game was going to be initially. Obviously the kids ended up being pretty young. For some reason I thought maybe they might have been older based on that initial sketch we saw. I think the identity crisis that I think Digimon has is that they are targeting, I think, two very distinct groups. Whereas a lot of other big franchises kind of can run the gamut or have one group. Whereas I think Digimon is acutely aware they are targeting kids with the kind of Saturday morning vibe, but also that a significant amount of their Japanese and overseas audience is adults who have nostalgia for the franchise. Kids aren't buying a $120 Digivice off Premium Bandai. So I think there is this desire, like you say, with things like Cyber Sleuth, to make those kinds of stories, or with Tri, which is obviously, for us, for people who grew up on Adventure, but it might just be that there isn't time in the release schedule or budget to do specifically like an anime that is that kind of Persona 5 Cyber Sleuthy style thing. I think the next story game is probably most likely going to be that, because even looking to the previous story games like Dawn and Dusk, those kids are all older or tackling more mature stuff, even in like Dawn and Dusk, which isn't particularly deep but in comparison to the more like kids going on an adventure vibe. So I think there is definitely room for it, and I think it's something that Digimon would want to pursue, but it's just like, where do they do that? My hope is the story game.
I don't have too many points here, but I maybe want to give you the floor, not to put you on the spot, but if you have anything to say about what you'd like to see from the trading card game moving forward. I'm not the expert by any means on the Digimon trading card game, but I know you're relatively active in the collecting. What would you want to see the card game do next?
They are making steps as far as the meta goes to make things better. There's now cards that aren't playable, have been completely banned, or have over the entire course of the game have been restricted. So that's something that I think needs to continue. The main issue I think we have with the Digimon card game on a tournament and meta level right now is that there's like 3 decks that you kind of have to play to win, and that is TCGs at their core. I also have this idea with the card game getting crazier, for people like you who haven't really jumped on board, I think it would be interesting to have a completely isolated different type of card game, maybe like a deck builder or something that just doesn't ever have boosters. Like you buy the thing and that's the thing, based on Appmon, because no one, like a lot of people are very not keen for Appmon to get folded into Digimon, but I think as Appmon does exist as this Digimon thing that is outside of Digimon, I think it would be a good opportunity to utilize the Appmon property and have that be something that you can just play that doesn't require a lot of investment, because just like, oh, if if I buy the Appmon game, anyone I play with can play with it, and we can play sort of endlessly. So I think that would be an interesting thing they could do, to keep a simplistic gameplay style to bring in people who might be interested, and then go, hey, if you'd like a more elaborate version of this, go check out the main Digimon card game.
And then obviously the people who, because then the Appmon people are just ecstatic that Appmon is being acknowledged, and then the people who don't like Appmon are saying like, okay, good, it's still its own thing, like it's not necessarily integrated into the Digimon TCG.
Although I, for the record, would like Appmon to get folded into the main continuity.
Just wanted to pick your brain about this for Digimon going forward, and that is, if you want to see the Digimon Adventure 2020 kind of universe continue in the way that at first, before they announced Ghost Game, we weren't sure if there was going to be a season 2, the same 8 kids, or would we get the 02 moment of the new reboot where it's, the character's a little bit older, we follow new kids, but it's taking place in the year 2022. Do you think that could happen? Do you think it should happen?
I didn't personally enjoy Adventure 2020 that much once we got into the end game, but as it is a reboot, I have no problem, or even I'm almost curious to see what a 02 might look like, because as much as I ended up liking Kizuna, a sequel's potential to absolutely ruin an original property is way stronger than a reboot which is using the same elements but does not change the story of the original. So I would like Digimon to explore things like a 02 thing, like something that I think is still technically on the table. Most likely is a Digimon 2020 movie, maybe folding in some 02 elements or something. I think the main issue I have conceptually with like Digimon Adventure 2020-02 is not whether it should exist, but more that I don't want to go through 60 weeks of that again. I would like it to be a side thing, not the main anime. So either make it shorter or do it as movies, or, you know, like...
I think where I've left off, and it seems like we're pretty aligned, is that it would be cool to see that universe continue.
I think for me it's always more interesting to see something new explored, smaller projects expanding on 2020 while the next thing after Ghost Game starts.
There are a million directions that Digimon could take going forward. Our eyes are focused on the prospect of the new Digimon Story RPG, the return of English dubs to reach more than just the hardcore fans, and further support of the trading card game. Of course, let me know in the comments what you want to see from Digimon in 2022 and in 2023 and beyond. And if you haven't already, go check out Karn EX's channel ASAP. There's another video of us up there right now. It's a 30-minute conversation about Digimon Con and our thoughts on where Digimon is right now in early 2022. Also, thank you to Real I Am Riku for the art of Karn and myself used in this thumbnail. Link will be in the description to both Karn's channel and Real I Am Riku's Twitter account. Take care, see you in the next video after Digimon Con.